You want to grab a seat?
Yeah, I will do the chair. Atala and Dean are upstairs. Okay. They're on their way down, and like Stella's there. How are you, Roman?
I'm good.
With your favorite singlet?
Yeah, it's one of my favorites. Okay, maybe I will finish introducing. We have
Yeah, sure.
Honorable Governor Gary Joufa with us. So yes, so the journey started in 2015, locally owned, focused on forest. 2017, we did a second version of the software. At the time, we were approached to use our software for a forest. And considering the size of the forest, that's when we sort of a blockchain. It was about 4 years ago. For different reasons, we chose to stop a particular project due to cultural no fit. And eventually in 2018, we started to work with Governor on his main project. Fast forward 2019, we were looking to re-platform, 2020, because blockchain had evolved dramatically. And that's when Roman came on board. So I wanted to take the opportunity to have Roman while he's here for about 2 months to take us through the latest trends. Plan is to start with a non-technical Q&A, and then eventually get into a bit more technical, depending on questions. Ideally, if you can ask your questions through the chat to keep it more efficient, and we'll see how it goes. So just to conclude, thank you very much for being in the session, and we'll take your, I will hand it over to Governor, and then to Roman. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. It's good to know that Michael Brady is here as well from C4.
Hello there.
Hey, Mike, good to see you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, we've spoken on WhatsApp, but we have not spoken in person.
Yeah, we've got a big program coming up in PNG, so I'm trying to meet people like yourselves. And I think you know Tony Simmons and others in ICRAF. Yeah.
Yes, I do know Dr. Simmons, and we're looking forward to this program. It's got the backing of the national government. The Prime Minister himself is very keen on how this program rolls out and what it can do, the potential. And yeah, I think bringing together technology to find solutions for sustainable development is the way to go. It's the future, especially now with all the indicators that we see in regards to how the world is faring because of man's footprint and how we have been behaving. We meaning mankind, humans. We've been behaving in a very reckless and irresponsible manner, and as a result, the consequences are very evident wherever you look. Global warming, sea levels rising, temperatures increasing everywhere, and we've got climate refugees. The first climate refugees as a result of global warming are recorded in Papua New Guinea, in the Cataract Islands in Bougainville, and they're facing a very difficult time, having to be relocated from their island to the mainland. I had the opportunity to listen to the Minister for Environment and Conservation who visited that island and spoke of the huge psychological, difficulties that the people faced having to leave their home for a foreign land because they can no longer live on that island because of global warming. Sea levels have risen so much so that there's so much saline contaminating their island, and they cannot plant their normal crops, for example. I'm thankful to be here. We've partnered with C5, Source Pacific, Pierre and his team, Roman. It's a great opportunity to work with people who think about the future and who think about solutions and what can be done. Yes, we have these difficulties and challenges that face us all, but there are positivities. And I think if we all work together and if we use the collective intelligence that we have, we can harness, we can find solutions to the world's problems, you know. Papua New Guinea is, as you all know, baby, home to 7% of the world's biodiversity on 1% of the world's real estate. Not many people know this, really. We produce about enough oxygen for 80, 70 million people. But for too long, we have been liquidating our forest resources. There are other options, you know, and I'm proud to be able to interact with those who are providing those solutions and better options. So I can speak about that. I'm not an expert in this area. I have very limited knowledge about blockchain and all the possibilities and options that come with it. But I do know that it provides opportunities for transparent governance. And that's what really appeals to me. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you, Gary. So I guess it's time to hand over to Roman and take on the show.
Yeah.
Do you want to do it from your computer?
I can do it. Yeah.
You could probably mute me.
You need. Hi everyone. Okay, you also use this. So my name is Roman. You have to mute the sound. How about now?
Can you try to mute yours?
Well, I can. It's not gonna help. Okay, let me just use your.
My laptop for the sound.
For the sound.
Play on yours.
Whatever. Anyways, hi everyone, and I'm now on both window screens, which is not a problem. So I came here to basically share my knowledge and tell you guys and you guys as well about blockchain and different aspects of it. Our planned format is mostly Q&A. So whatever questions you come up with, please write them in the chat, and I will talk on those. Like I will respond to them. So we have both an online group and an offline group. We are coming here together, and so some questions may come from people offline as well. So does anyone have any questions so far, or any preferable aspect you guys want me to talk about? Or
just go ahead.
Just a general overview of blockchain
okay.
in a layman's.
Okay, so general overview. What blockchain is? Basically, the easiest way to see it, it is a transparent ledger of any records. So, for example, let's say you have a notebook and I have a notebook. And whenever you do something for me, we both write it in our notebooks, like she did this for me. Okay, and whenever I do something for you, maybe I give you something, or maybe we do something, we put it on our notebooks. So, and then blockchain is when every participant in the network has this notebook, and it's digital, it's running automatically, and it allows like basically transparent storage of information, whatever mutual information might be of importance. So the first use case of blockchain that has ever appeared in the digital world was Bitcoin. So like everyone heard of Bitcoin? That's digital currency. So it's a digital form of money that was used that utilized blockchain under the hood. to provide this transparency and security without the need of any middleman. So there is no central authority that decides to store the data. No, there is only technology and only peer-to-peer network that works in a decentralized way. So Bitcoin was only the first use case for blockchain, but then very quickly people realized that Bitcoin is much bigger than, blockchain is much bigger than just money. So we can also apply to all kinds of things whenever we want a system that is based on trustlessness, meaning it does not need participants to trust each other. They rely on cryptographic security. And so the system allows them to mutually oversee each other and the information that is being created. So one of the big use cases for blockchain is so-called DAO, or decentralized autonomous organization. And it's basically a blockchain-based system for governance. So imagine you have a community that needs to make decisions on some common matters, and like conventional approach is to have someone in charge of everything and decide what the community does. And then people may have or may not have big influence on that. So democracy, basically, as a form of governance, was supposed to let people have actual power, actual influence on what is going to be decided. And the idea is great, but then implementation of the idea was tricky, because many governments may not be that transparent. And in the end, what we see in the world, normal, regular people, in many countries, they don't really have influence. So the decisions are made for them, and they have no choice. So DAO, as a blockchain-based system, it's basically democracy on the blockchain. And thanks to the blockchain, it provides transparency and security in such a way that people can vote, like they can propose certain ideas or certain questions, like what do we do? Do we do this or do we do this? And then everyone gets to vote. And so these votes are transparently verified on the blockchain. You can see them, everyone can see that it cannot be manipulated in any way. And then it's very visible and very apparent what the communal decision is. So what the community thinks of this or this proposal. And if we have any issues with any group or subgroup of people, then you can address those. They are not dismissed and heard. So this is the biggest value of the DAO, like this digital system. And that's one of the very big use cases for blockchain in general. Another use case for blockchain is storing data that we want it to be transparent and verifiable, but we don't want a central party to be responsible for that. So, because whenever you have a centrally governed system, then a human factor comes into play, right? Is it an honest governance or not? So when you have a trustless system, then you have data data stored on this system verifiably and transparently without the need to trust a central authority. So this is another very good use case. For example, we want to store some data related to forests, like, for example, like certain species of trees and the situation in the forest, what we have, what we don't have. So we can record it on blockchain so that it cannot be manipulated later, because once the data is on the blockchain, it's there. You cannot do anything about it anymore. It's there. And it's transparent, so everyone can see that it's there, and everyone can make their decisions based on that. So does anyone have any questions?
I'll have to leave, Pierre and team. So thank you very much, Roman. I've managed to catch up with Roman and hear from him firsthand a lot of this already. It's still very fascinating for me. I look at the future and I think if in the future, when blockchain is developed and enhanced, it can actually cut down on a lot of costs for government, you know, because blockchain can provide the opportunities for transparent procurement of goods and services. It can ensure that more people have a say. For instance, if you have a referendum over an issue that is very important to a nation, you know, I'd prefer that a whole lot more people say, if you're voting age, if you're an adult, you should have some sort of say in regards to decisions that are going to impact on your life or the lives of your loved ones, etc. So this is where I see the opportunities for government, you know, and I think, you know, we can actually cut down on greater government involvement in anything and everything, which seems to be the case in many nations, even those that claim to be the most democratic nations. You see that oftentimes they are behaving in very undemocratic ways, really, under the surface. Anyhow, thank you all, team, and please enjoy this opportunity. As I've said earlier, as a person from a forest, as a forest resource owner, as a person who is connected to a tribe and a clan, I see that blockchain is actually the modern manifestation of what used to be the clan and tribe system, whereby in a clan and a tribe, the clan and tribe made decisions collectively based on what was in the best interest of the clan or the tribe, you know, and blockchain is just, in my opinion, a modern version of that. And it's something that is quite exciting, actually, because in Papua New Guinea, where we own 97% of our land, clan, tribesmen, oftentimes they really don't know what they're up against when they turn up to negotiate development projects, you know, that involve them. You know, this assists them greatly in getting better information and in making collective decisions on behalf of, you know, their future generations. So thank you all again. Thanks, Pierre. Thanks, Roman, and the team, Stella. And I'll catch up with you all later.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
So yeah, here we have an amazing opportunity to bring the value, the incredible value of blockchain technology into real world application, thanks to people like Gary, Gary Jufa, the governor, because yeah, this is a really good use case, and we are blessed to have a governor that is open to applying that. So as I still don't see any questions
just
in the chat.
let me add, so the first part of this workshop was non-technical, so definitely there are 22 provinces in Papua New Guinea. Governor Jufa is our client, but also is one of the most prominent governor. And one thing which could be of interest to some of you is at a subnational, at the provincial level, there is a lot of authority in terms of legislation. Obviously, matters which have to do with defense and currency belongs to the national government, but pretty much everything from agriculture to education, governor can establish new legislation. So example that he has been providing at the clan level applies to the province. The province is half the size of Switzerland. So if you think of, you're given pretty much a country, where for different business process, whether it's chocolate or whether it's the council of chief and how people make decisions. Roman has already started to codify some of those work processes, which enables to replicate what was once the system into a more scalable solution.
That's true.
So we don't have a set duration. So we also have a bit of a demo, but we were thinking of doing it a little bit later. But
More technical things. Like I was planning to speak more based on what people are interested to hear about, basically. So depending on how technical people want to go, I have something technical to show, or I have a lot to explain in simple human terms without going technical. So yeah, whatever you guys want to hear about in regards to blockchain or decentralized governance or Bitcoin or whatever, just feel free to ask. Ethereum, smart contracts.
Roman, I have just an uninformed question,
Yeah.
or let's say semi-informed, just based on my experience.
Yeah, go for it.
When you start coding representation, in my experience in working with communities, they want representation. They want representation. But when you go to them and you say, how would you like, what form would that representation take for you? Well, it can be anything except for those people. You know, I don't want those people representing. So how do you code? I mean, you still get down to a point where there has to be some sort of some sort of common denominator that everyone agrees upon, that will be the coded representation. Does that make sense? So you can, when you say, okay, council of elders, then, or council of something, how do you get the consensus that that council will in fact represent everyone so that you can code that? You know, I'm just thinking about my own experiences where you try to get consensus and it's, well, this is all good, but not those people, or not that person, or that person got in by, he's a crook, so I can't go along with this. Are you experiencing any of that? Or just a question, just a thought. Thanks.
I can start from a business process and you come technically. Council of Chief, I mean, Maurice, you work with a USA aid, so you're very fluent about it. Is in the province of Oro, it's the province which has revitalized it the most in the country. And it's there is a constitution which is, call it a think tank. This is what's expected to be done. Now, there is, like any country, there are people in the forest, and there is the provincial government. So there is always this kind of a distrust. Another one would be if you start to involve, let's say, USA aid, or if you like to involve large corporate organization. So the benefit of what Roman talked about, the DAO, which is a distributed autonomous organization, is something I personally didn't know a few months ago, and that at the time when we did the second version of C5 was not existing. So there is a lot of features in that functionality which allows to configure how to do autonomous and distributed organization. So it's not plug and play, but the fact that people start to have a copy of the blockchain in the forest, so in our pilot area, and pretty much what they expect is the data they have is the same as the data in the capital city of the province. So that's already started to drive some new, most trusted or less untrusted conversation. But on a use case by use case, we've identified a few. We are configuring the blockchain accordingly.
So yeah, from my understanding, like people have already been using some form of collective governance, like the Council of Chiefs or the Council of Elders, where they make decisions collectively, and they can make it. They can do it without blockchain. But then where the transparency is required is the next steps. Like, okay, these people made their decisions, but as it is passed on to more executive sections of governance, then it's very necessary for the collective decisions to be transparent. Like, okay, this community has actually decided this. And for example, like youth representatives think that it should be done this way, and women representatives think that it should be done this way. So with this transparency, it will let less space for malicious manipulation further down the road.
Right, right. So the lowest level of coding then is based on some sort of consensus that these are the representative groups that will be coded. I may be missing something, but yeah, I'm just thinking, there's got to be that base level of coding. We can't code everybody, individuals. So for example, the Council of Chiefs, that's been revitalized, and that's a recognized, I would say, legal entity that represents a level of coding. And then you mentioned women's groups. So those are not necessarily legal. Well, I guess they are if they're incorporated legally, but that would be another base level of coding. I'm just thinking about it as the distributive network, like somewhere at the bottom to roll up, there has to be the lowest level. So it was kind of just a question about that. I get what you're saying. Yeah.
So the technology we're creating is going to be flexible enough to allow adding more components to the system. For example, if at some point people decide that they need some more representatives to take part in this voting process, then we can add them, no problem.
Right.
So the system is flexible and universal enough to allow that. Intrinsically, the technology of DAO, it does not require any particular structure. So we can create the structure that we need, and we can adapt it to certain applications.
Yeah, I got it.
Just
That's a
more
good answer.
Yeah, let me just give you an example. Often what happens is first, like you said, in parts of the country, which you know very well, the Council of Chiefs has disappeared. Our province has had it revitalized for more than 12 years, and pretty much half of the southern clans are using it. The beauty of working in forests, if you think of the scaling of C5 beyond Papua New Guinea, is we don't have, like, say, in the US or other developed country, the ability to codify or to configure it because of all the legislation. Whereas those forest-rich nations, they're very practical. And they are example where in a previous project, so at the moment we've made a deliberate choice with Stella and the team that we only focus on that project with the governor, because once we make it work, it can be scaled very quickly. And an example is is the chief. So if you have multiple tribes adjacent, one will call himself a chief, which is fine. So in the system, he'll be recorded as a chief, and he'll have duties against that position. Now, if later on someone else comes and pretend or claim to be a chief, there's no problem. We just have to have a conversation between the two of them. sounds simple, but because there is no national ID, technology allows with a signature and a picture to simplify. And there has been so many examples where people claim to be from the area just to be opportunistic. Finally, there are numerous other use cases, which example, Papua New Guinea is a very communal, so sometimes it's hard to voice it's actually not appropriate to make the point on an individualistic basis. So like Roman said, maybe people, one thing we are considering, which works to an extent, is people go back to their house to vote. So we know from a GPS whether they could go back to their house, and then there is an aggregation of the data versus, having to do it in front of with the pressure from other people. So again, technology can definitely improve some of those. And again, with such a governor, we have a lot of authority in the legislation.
Yeah, I look forward to getting to the technical part of our discussion, but I'll just make a point. What I like about this is the comparison between interior areas and coastal areas. In interior areas, there's a more homogeneous group, or let's say a structure, cultural structure in place. In coastal areas where there's a lot of in-migration, those cultural structures break down because you have people who don't maybe don't adhere, they're not part of that area. And so I think, this is something that can open up transparency. You moved me over a second, but I think, this is something that would bring in some sort of consensus building into those very heterogeneous areas where you have lots of different kinds of people who may say, well, that clan made that decision, but that's not my clan. I came from somewhere else. I don't know. It was just a thought. Okay, I'm done.
Bogdan.
Boris, thank you very much, because you mentioned this point, because you're addressing here one of the most fundamental human elements, fairness. And it's I'm very much in troubleshooting in companies and in crisis situations. And what I'm seeing, that the reason for crisis and for lack of trust are actually 2 points. One, people do not agree where they are heading. They do not agree on the primary task, or they agree on that but don't agree on how to get there. And at the end, it is creating a kind of starting with a shared ground. And this shared ground must be so fundamental, clear, and undisputable, so that afterwards you can add on all kinds of technologies. But this shared ground must be absolutely clear and accepted by everybody. So just imagine you have a Jewish, you have a Christian, you have a Muslim, and a Hindu. And you put them all together in a room and say, okay, guys, let's agree on what is God. And it's a pretty deadlocked discussion, yeah? You can finish it within seconds. Or you can start asking, okay, let's agree on what God is not. And then you find a lot of many areas where everybody agrees on that one. And when Maurice brought his example, how to deal with the others, yeah, it became for me very evident and very clear. We need to create a system where a sort of authority in what we are building, which is true and valid for everybody. And this was just my reflection in the morning. I think it's a very hot topic, but I would indeed, as a process, try to always start with a shared ground. so that there are no discussions. Share ground with really everybody. And it doesn't matter how big it is. If it is on just, let's agree that day has 24 hours, it's already a great start to start with. And then to build and grow in around it. Okay, my 2 cents.
I think this is an excellent point, Bogdan, is sometimes we try to codify everything. That's a good feedback for us, because even the Council of Chiefs has some elements which are very, very complex. So that's going to be a useful point for the design. Sometimes I make there's an example I wanted to bring to the team. And I believe, yes, Michael is still here. And the opportunity with this project, which I failed to say earlier, but it will be presented at the COP26 in Glasgow as one of the flagship project, is we are working with an international organization called CIFOR, where Michael belongs, and together with governor and together with C5. So a visualization, which I believe might make sense to a lot of you, is there are three jungles. You have the international jungle, which if you want to talk at COP26, you've got to use particular rhetoric. Second is the subnational at a province, and some of you here are coming from that province, and it's extremely hard to get to a common language. So that's another jungle, and technology, like we're covering today, is also a very complex domain. So an obvious example is if I go to our project area by myself, there's not much I can do. There's a lot of traditions. To get to a particular village, it took me 2 months to be cleared. And then I was super welcome. In a similar way, if governor start to do coding, might take him a bit of time. So what's beautiful about this project is we managed to get 3 types of complex jungle coming together. So there's innovation on the blockchain, very innovative governor, and a very trusted and practical organization. And that's what makes the project quite unique. Any other question? Michael, Lance, Nancy, Jamie, Francis, Meeks?
Well, thanks, Pierre. I'm very, very new to the group, and very keen to hear a little bit more about some examples of how you're implementing blockchain in the country, and Oro province in particular. As you mentioned, I'm with C4, the Center for International Forestry Research, based in Bogor, Indonesia, and involved in a new initiative in Oro province, a large conservation project. So I'm not familiar with the details, whether what your engagement is. So I'm very, very interested to learn more and maybe to hear some more examples. Thanks.
Well, speaking about examples in this space, I did the research on who tried to apply blockchain for forest preservation or any related issues, and I think there are actually very, very few. So some people tried tracking logs from from legal logging. They would put a label on each log to track it and verify it on the blockchain, which kind of works, but then as the logs get to some facility in China where they basically cut the label away, and then it's mixed with illegal logs, so the track is lost. So that's one application that doesn't seem to work really well. One really good application that I found is a project named Regen Network, regen as in regeneration. So their approach is to use blockchain to facilitate transition of conventional agriculture to regenerative agriculture. So regenerative agriculture is a set of practices that are quite different from conventional one, and that focus on preserving the soil and developing the soil health, which facilitates facilitates sequestering more carbon into soil, and also increases the output and the biodiversity and the health of the ecosystem in general. So they use blockchain to store data transparently on the blockchain that is relevant to the agricultural farms that they work on. But their focus is completely on the grasslands, on their conventional farms, and not on the forests yet. So in regards to communal governance and actually preserving the forests, I think we're either first ones or maybe ones of the first ones, because I haven't found any examples of applications like this yet. So we are going to be the first example.
Just let me complete. So we've identified about 28 organizations. We call them industry peers because we are open source, and but none of them have been focusing on not just the forest, but also the community as well, and the traditional owners. I failed to give an example earlier. Sorry for that. There's a lot of discussion about carbon credit, which we see an explosion of the value over the last 2-3 weeks. It grew by tenfold because European Union wants to only import carbon neutral product. And in a country like Papua New Guinea, you have what's called carbon cowboys, which are people that are, and we've interacted physically with a few of them, that are going from one forest to the next and say, hey, I can get you some money for not cutting the trees, but you've got to sign a particular consent. Now, what it means is those people will go overseas and say, hey, this forest is mine, so you give me a few $100s per tons of CO2. And then those people, obviously, they make quite a lot of money. And then when they go back to the community, they pretty much give nothing. So the community had an asset, which then became not wasted, but became written off for them, because the ability to sell credit on that particular piece of land is gone. I want to step out of the carbon credit or biodiversity conversation, because in our project, it is only a component of the program. Our focus is really on the people, on the forest, and often we simplify it to agroforestry, like coffee, but more and more we are really stepping out of just agriculture, and we actually challenged ourselves to go in the distributed autonomies or the council of chief, if you want, because if you manage to codify that, you can apply it to various matters, such as a school, infrastructure, a health center, and preservation of not just the forest, but also languages. So by stepping back into the Council of Chiefs and how decisions are made, and this is a project on a one generation horizon with deliverables starting from now, we should be able to demonstrate that the forest gets preserved in a totally unique way. And by doing so, there will be people overseas who will be very interested by the approach versus saying we save the forest through coffee farming. So we've had a lot of attention on the business model, again with CIFOR internationally, at people on the ground. They are extremely excited after having been deprived for many, many years. And yeah, definitely from a technology point of view, I mean, for Roman, myself, and Francis here, and a few others, it's an opportunity of a lifetime because you have a true use case at hand.
Okay, thank you for that.
Do we want to get technical a bit, or so we just we're pretty much halfway through? So
yeah, I would love to hear some feedback from the audience, like what aspects of technicality you guys interested to hear about, because I may start talking about smart contracts, but then maybe no one gives a shit about smart contracts. So let's focus on what is interesting for the audience, right?
What about areas around, I guess, similar to contracts, but around permits and licensing? Is there an opportunity to, I mean, those are areas where there's a lot of opportunity for manipulation. Is there an opportunity? How can blockchain, reduce that opportunity to manipulate permits and licenses?
Well, basically, blockchain can make sure that it's impossible to fake a document. So, like if a certain authority issues a certain document, like a license or a certificate of on any matter, then blockchain can make it very transparent and verifiable that it was actually issued by this authority. Then whether this authority is corrupt or not, that is another issue, another question, but at least it eliminates the possibility to fake the document, because you cannot fake a digital signature on the blockchain. So that's what I see as.
Roman, maybe it's I mean, really, this is a blank blockchain, because assume we've technically most of us pretty much trust whatever you want to share.
Okay.
I've seen some of what you did, so it's yeah, I'd let you start from wherever.
Okay, well, you want me to do a demo of what we do, or what the
Maybe
smart
from
contracts are, right?
Yeah, from us, and then if there is broader features which maybe we haven't used that can trigger some interest.
Okay, I'll start by showing the current version of one of the apps that we are creating on the blockchain. And but I'll need the internet to be good. Oh, I haven't shared my screen yet. So this is one of the applications. So here we basically, we have a blockchain to store information related to the work of our team on the project. It is like a demonstration of how we can use blockchain to add data on it in a transparent and verifiable way. So basically here what we have is like we can add a note or any, like it can be also voice, a picture, but I'll just add a simple note. So I'll say hello from the workshop. And it automatically determines your coordinates, your GPS coordinates. And then we have a blockchain running that is that we are connecting through this app. Some things take a while because my internet is not very good. Here currently I'm confirming a transaction about adding this information to the blockchain. Seems like I need a better internet. Yeah. Anyways,
You can use mine if you want.
yeah, I just don't want to switch in the middle because the connection will interrupt. Anyways, maybe if I restart, it will be better. So the blockchain that we're running, like, it's not the blockchain itself, but it's like a dashboard that allows you to see that the blockchain is working and that there are some nodes. So these are nodes on the blockchain. So far, we only have 3, and but we can plug in more nodes. For example, in the province, maybe there will set up a server. Maybe so. Basically, every participant that is willing to support a network, we can onboard them, and they will become a node on the blockchain. What nodes do? Nodes facilitate transactions in the blockchain. So basically, every node stores the whole blockchain, and they usually oversee each other to make sure that the data is good and clear, not manipulated. So the more nodes you have on the networks, basically the more secure network is. And together, these nodes create new blocks in the chain. So a quick introduction into what blockchain is like. So data on the blockchain is put into blocks. So for example, I made a transaction just now. It goes into a block. If there are multiple transactions, we currently have a block time of 5 seconds. It means that every 5 seconds, all the transactions that were made are put into a block, and the block is added to the chain. So whenever a block is added to the chain, it's done. It's you cannot change the data that is in the chain. So that's and the blocks in the chain, they usually reference each other. So if someone, say, would try to manipulate data in one of the previous blocks, they would also have to redo all the rest of the blocks. So, and that's nearly impossible technologically, and that's what makes blockchain secure. So, nodes of the network, they mint or create these blocks, and in this way, they actually facilitate and secure the network, providing this blockchain to whoever wants to use it, whoever has access to use it and wants to use it. So regular user doesn't really have to run a blockchain node, but they can just connect to existing nodes and send transactions through them. But the nodes will secure the network. So here, like, this is a quick dashboard to just see the status of the network. Here we can see new blocks are being created and the nodes that verify it. So here is what adding data looks like. So when I press add, transaction goes to the node, and to facilitate this interaction with the blockchain, like website doesn't interact with the blockchain directly because blockchain is just a separate technology that functions in parallel. So that's why there is a plugin in the browser that is called MetaMask, and it's like community industry standard for interacting with blockchains. And your MetaMask is basically your tool that allows you to confirm or reject transactions that a website wants to send on your behalf to the blockchain. So here currently I confirm a transaction. Yeah, apparently the previous one just didn't really work well because some internet issues, but this one worked well. And here is the list of the records on that blockchain. So this data is not stored in any conventional database. It's not on MySQL or whatever. It's on the blockchain. And this site is actually, it does not have a backend. There is no server running this site. So the front end is cloud-based, and instead of the backend, we only have this blockchain that stores data. So as the data goes into the blockchain, here we can see it in this table, and as you can add not only text notes but also photos or PDFs. For example, this is a spider that I took a photo of in the jungle here in Papua New Guinea. Here is an example of a PDF file that you can also add on it. It is stored on a blockchain. Well, actually, this is probably where I should talk about IPFS as well. So as storing data on the blockchain is quite, well, it's not expensive, but it's data intense. So to optimize that, we actually don't put pictures and like big documents on the blockchain itself. So what we do instead is we use IPFS, and IPFS stands for Interplanetary File System, and that's what it has initially been invented for. So basically to allow spacecrafts and satellites to exchange data when some of the nodes on the network can go offline or back online in undetermined periods of time. So there is no guarantee of uninterrupted connectivity, but the data exchange is guaranteed. So it will not be instant. For example, if some nodes goes offline, obviously it won't have the data that appears during its offline period. But as soon as it gets back online, it has access to all the data, and the data is shared among this dynamic set of participants. That's what IPFS is, and invented for space. It has actually found quite wide application in the blockchain space, because when you don't want to store big chunks of data on the blockchain because you want to minimize the data load on the servers, what you do instead is you upload your data into IPFS, and it's stored in this decentralized IPFS network. And what you get in return is a hash of this file. And so by this hash, you can always load this file back from the network. And this hash is exactly what we put and store on the blockchain, which is much more data efficient. So yeah, here basically, for example, this PDF file or this photo of this beautiful spider, they are stored on IPFS, and from IPFS, the reference is stored on the blockchain. So under the hood of all this,
So let me just make a very short. So our project area has 20,000 inhabitants, 4,000 households within 150 villages. So we have different design at this stage, whether we put one physical server in the main village, or even have one device in each of the 150 villages, and maybe even 4,000 if we are managed to keep it the size of the blockchain lean. And the benefit, maybe was a question from Michael, I think, or is if we've all agreed on a particular information, whomever wants to have a look, everyone's got access to the same file, because it's not that no one can say, oh, I have a different version of the file. And so it is pretty unique versus existing technologies.
yeah, right. So yeah, that's what usual database that blockchain provides is good for. you can't say that you have a different version of the information because everyone sees the current version of the information. I guess I'll show some smart contracts that were under the hood of this. So what a smart contract is. So we have a blockchain, and maybe it'll be good if I make a little bit of explanation on how it all developed, how it all appeared. So initially, blockchain was created for money, for Bitcoin, and for transactions where each transaction is a transfer of value from point A to point B, or from multiple points A to multiple points B. Anyways, each transaction is just a transfer of value. So then that was Bitcoin, and many copies of Bitcoin and analogous systems. But anyway, a few years later, Ethereum has appeared. And so what Ethereum was about is like, hey, let's add something more to this blockchain thing, right? So what if each transaction is not only a transfer of value, but what if each transaction can actually be of arbitrary complexity? So what if we enable us to create programs that will be running on the blockchain, and then you can send transactions to those programs, and they will execute any manipulations with the data that they need to, and they can also operate value that you send. So that is what Ethereum was about, and smart contract is the name for that program running on the blockchain and operating data and value that goes through it. So on the main Ethereum network, it's almost all applications of smart contracts are tied to using money and operations with money. For example, if you have ever heard of decentralized finance, that's basically the biggest real world application of smart contracts on Ethereum main network. But in our blockchain, so as we are creating a product not on the main network of Ethereum, and we want to actually detach from money manipulation and focus on the data. So that's why we have a private blockchain running, and what means that basically it is the same Ethereum software, but a spin-off of the network. So we operate not on the regular Ethereum main network, but we run our own version of Ethereum network. So on this network, we only do stuff that is related to our project. So all the smart contracts that we put will operate data of relevance to our projects. And the smart contracts that we deploy on this network, they already do. They operate the data that we send to those smart contracts, like what I just showed you before. So this is actually happening on our own version of Ethereum network on our private blockchain. And we still use smart contracts, but they don't use money application for these smart contracts for the transactions, but only operate data. So every transaction, unlike main Ethereum network, every transaction here is free, and we just focus on the data. So here, I guess I'll show you what a smart contract looks like from the inside. So this is a code of a smart contract, and it's written in a programming language that was created specifically for smart contracts. It looks a bit like JavaScript, and it was actually based, its syntax is based from JavaScript, but then for smart contracts, it needed to be much more strict and precise than JavaScript. So there are many more additions to it. For example, static typing instead of dynamic typing, as you have in JavaScript. So here, basically, you can describe your data types and so the data that's going to be stored. So here, for example, we can see that a record is a structure that has a timestamp, like when the data was added, the reference to the file that is stored, like the hash of the IPFS storage of that file that we are loading, and latitude and longitude, the GPS coordinates. And we have basically a list of these records, and we have functions. So whenever we call a function, there are two types of functions with smart contracts. You can either call a smart contract to just read some data from the blockchain, and then you don't need to issue any transactions. It's free, and even in the main Ethereum network, read-only transactions are free. So you can always access information on the blockchain with the help of smart contracts for free. And there are transactions that modify the state of the blockchain. So they add or they change the data that is stored on the blockchain. And on the main Ethereum network, that's where you actually pay for this transaction, because it's to facilitate it, so the nodes will need to actually change something. But in our private blockchain, it's free because we don't have this money notion in the blockchain operation. So, for example, this transaction, this function is what is called when I press this add button, when I added a record, and you remember this window appeared to confirm a transaction. That's when this particular function was actually called and the data was added to those records, that records data structure. So that's what a simple smart contract looks like. And yeah, it allows you to store data on the blockchain, and to interact with it, you use a certain library that is called Web3 in connection with MetaMask, or it is actually an open source technology. So there are other solutions, not only MetaMask, but MetaMask is the industry standard. That's how it all comes together. What else?
Ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'm just
Go for it.
curious if, for example, a government agency wanted to use blockchain, as part of its functions, what would the typical model look like? Would you act as a service provider to that agency, or would you train them to use blockchain themselves? I'm just curious what the business model would be.
We could, of course, be service providers, but actually the whole philosophy of blockchain and decentralization is to enable people to have direct access to technology and to value and to the data. So if we interact with certain governments or authorities, I would definitely suggest that we educate them, that we train them on how you actually interact with the system, so they don't have to trust us as a service provider on the validity of the data that we provide, so that they can connect directly and see directly what the data is. So they don't have to trust any authority like us.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, decentralization is the core principle of the whole philosophy that blockchain conveys. So in every product that is created, there is always an intention to make it as decentralized as possible, to minimize the need for any central service providers or authorities to facilitate whatever is happening, but to make it decentralized as much as possible so that people can interact directly. For example, if we for example, we use Bitcoin, and if I want to send you money, the whole idea of Bitcoin is that you have a wallet and I have a wallet, and I just sign a transaction, it goes directly, and there is no service provider that will say, yeah, just give your money to us and we will send it to them for you. No, that's completely ruins the whole idea, right? So, and this approach we try to exercise in every blockchain-based solution. So what else? Maybe I can show you also how you can deploy smart contracts. So
we have another 15, 20 minutes, Roman.
Okay. If you guys have any questions, technical or non-technical, feel free to ask them at any moment. You can just unmute yourself and ask, or you can type them in the chat and we will talk on that. So in the meanwhile, I guess I'll show how the contracts are actually deployed to the network. I don't know if there are any developers, software developers, coders, programmers here in the audience, but yeah, maybe it'll be interesting for some people just to see how it happens. So currently I'm just opening the directory where I have my smart contracts, and there is this beautiful tool that is called Truffle. And so Truffle is basically a tool, a set of tools to compile, test, and deploy smart contracts. So the smart contracts that I've made are stored here in the project directory as a file, as a .sol file. Sol stands for Solidity. So Solidity is the name of the programming language that is used. This particular programming language is Solidity. So, and to compile them, I just type truffle compile, and it takes the smart contracts from the contracts directory and just goes over them, checks everything, and basically builds them in the EVM code. EVM stands for Ethereum Virtual Machine. And that's basically a bytecode that is going to be further down the road deployed on the network as a transaction. So yeah, I've just compiled them yesterday, so it is already compiled. And what we do next? Yeah, so another command is called truffle migrate, and I specify the network, and our network is C5V, and maybe it's also useful to show how it's configured. So there is a config file where I actually specify which network is C5V. So C5V is the name of our project, right? So that's how I decided to call the network as well. And so here we actually have a URL to connect to our network. So using that URL, you can connect to the network and you can see the data on the network. You also use a network ID, which I made 304. And but Truffle reads it automatically from the config file. So I just specify use this network. So that's exactly where you specify that you are using your own blockchain and not the main Ethereum blockchain. Because if I didn't specify this, then it would use a regular Ethereum blockchain. So here we use our network. And I think I'll just type reset so that it redeploys the contracts. So when I run this command, it gets the compiled version of my smart contracts, gets the bytecode, and it sends a transaction to the Ethereum network to actually deploy this bytecode on the blockchain. And what it does is it actually places this smart contract as a program. So from now on, as that transaction is confirmed, the program or the smart contract is running on the blockchain, and you can use it, you can read data from it, you can put data to it. That's what deployment is. So I guess my deployment failed for some reason. I actually don't know why, because it worked yesterday. Anyways, that's one approach. I won't get too technical into investigating why it failed today and didn't fail yesterday. You know, can get messy. Another nice tool for developers, again, I don't know if there are any developers out there, but there is another tool that allows you to deploy stuff to to deploy smart contracts on the Ethereum network. It's called Remix. It's still loading. So here I actually already have this code loaded because last time I deployed it, I was deploying it from here. So here you see the same smart contract code, and you can have it compiled here, which it is already doing. So this is like an in-browser tool. You load it and it works completely in the browser. And when it gets compiled, I actually don't know why it's so slow. I think it's because of Zoom running. Anyways, so here I switch to injected Web3, which means it will connect to my MetaMask. So I'll just let it do its thing. Yeah, now the smart contracts are compiled, and this is my MetaMask. So here I choose a smart contract that I want to deploy, and I just press deploy. MetaMask asks my consent for sending that transaction, and that transaction will actually deploy the smart contract to the network. So in here, we can see that the transaction is confirmed. Yeah. So here, like, just a new block has just been added to the blockchain, and in this block, our transaction got confirmed, and now we have this smart contract on the network. So if I call this function like get records count, so it will basically tell me how many records are in the smart contract right now. It says 0, which is not what we have on the front end, because here we have some records, but this is a fresh smart contract that I've just deployed. And I'm not going to put it to the front end right now because we already have one running there and we don't need it. But normally what I would do is I would take this smart contract address and I would put it into the front end code so that the front end serves actually this particular smart contract. And here you can also call functions of the smart contract, but I think we better not get that deep. So this is what Ethereum development is basically like. And yeah, if you guys have any questions, just ask.
I think one thing I was thinking of doing, maybe next week we start a bit later, because we have a few people been texting me more in the development space that couldn't leave work at 1 p.m. That's my learning, but
Mhm.
I think we've covered some of you, I don't know how technical you are, but the intent of the second hour was technical. We have started to train 2 resources here, and having Roman is very useful to do a knowledge transfer locally and build a relationship. So is there any question or?
I see one question from Maurice in the chat, and he's asking, are blocks data blocks or time blocks or transaction blocks? That's a good question. And blocks are basically chunks of transactions, and they are time-based in our approach. And so every block is issued, in our case, every 5 seconds. For example, in main Ethereum network, it's issued approximately every 13 seconds. In Bitcoin, every block is issued every 10 minutes. That's on average. And so all the transactions that happened within that time frame, for example, if a new block has just been created, and so from now on, new transactions are added into the network. And so when the new block is going to be created, all these transactions from the last block and the next block are added to that new block. So that's how transactions are aggregated into blocks, and blocks are connected to each other into what we call blockchain.
Just another, I hope, simple question, Roman. Maybe I'm still thinking about this the wrong way. I'm old, you know. Where does the blockchain reside? Where is it?
Yeah, that is a good question, and it actually resides on the nodes. So as I showed you the dashboard with 3 nodes running, and those are the nodes, basically servers that run Ethereum software to facilitate this blockchain, this network. So they have the data. The data resides on these servers, but they also, like, this is a distributed data storage. So if one node goes off, we don't lose the data because it's replicated on each node. And
so these nodes are owned by Ethereum, and they are separate. That's doesn't matter where they sit, they're separate, right? Is that how that works?
They are separate, yeah, and they are not owned by Ethereum. Actually, whoever runs the software, they own the node, yeah? So for example, if you decide to join the network and support the network, you will just run a certain software on your computer, or ideally in a server, and you will own the node, but you will facilitate the communal network.
Yep, I got it.
Ethereum is not a company and not an entity, it's just a technology. So Ethereum is what provides us with the software, but the software is open source, and there are actually alternatives as well. Ethereum is just one of the most developed ones, and we just use their software to use it to run our own network.
Clear.
Okay, any other questions, or just want to, I always enjoy giving back a bit of time, so.
Very helpful. I'm going to send a memo right after this.
Good to see you, Nancy.
Hi.
Hello. So I just introduce myself, maybe, because we're a small team now, aren't we? We're just 6 here.
Go ahead.
So I came from conservation biology and did my PhD in Papua New Guinea on conservation biology, and then came back 25 years later to run an agricultural company because I worked in eco-health, and I saw that agriculture was the problem. So I thought I could do it better. We've come back to do a livelihood sustainable conservation concept as a company, that has market, and I brought in an investor to be able to do that. And we've been developing last mile technology and working with about 20,000 farmers now in Madang after 2 years, Madang and Morobe. And so we're very keen to see how these ideas can be marketed, really, and made use of. And I have market for all commodities. And so we're in a unique position to be able to try and take this from theory into something that actually can work, and try and give people something more than just the basics, if there is conservation there. And my experience jumping from biology to business is there's a lot of people who talk about sustainability, who say they want sustainability, who say they're prepared to pay some margin for that, but the reality is not true. So you really have to find the right margins, the right verifications that can support, the really big ideas that you've got. And I think there's some really good people in PNG at the moment with the same kind of ideas, and it's a great environment to kind of try and share and put those things together and improve. So I'm really excited to see what you're doing, try and help, try and support, try and be involved. I don't know. I think there's just a lot of good people here at the moment who have the similar kind of ethos and ideas. And I think bringing those people together, then I think we can make change. So.
Nancy, this is Maurice. I put my email in the chat box. It would be good to connect with you. I don't know if you're in PNG now or not, but I'm in
Madang.
Yeah, I'll be in Madang in a few weeks. It'd be great to connect with you. If you could pick that up and drop me an email so we could be in contact, that would be great.
That'd be great. We'll see.
To create a connection. I think that's a good outcome. Okay, any last points, or we'll put this online and yeah.
Again, this was very helpful. Pierre, you contacted me when, I don't know, last year, I think. And, I was so busy trying to stand up, or even, no, it was even longer than that, I think. And I was so busy trying to stand up this new project that I really couldn't focus. This has given me new insight. I mean, it's just explained a technology which I really didn't understand. I think that's common, and it's just been very helpful. And I like the way Nancy finished her statement. Just, I want to try to find a way to help, to support, and yeah, whatever. I thought that was I'm on board. I don't know if I can do anything, but I'm really interested. Yeah.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you, everyone. I mean, I'm glad we had so many discussions. I've been see Bogdan smiling now. It's 7 a.m. in Europe, so it's pretty much late in the morning. So, but let's continue the conversation. We'll have another such forum eventually before Roman leaves us and come back later. But just glad we did a bit of awareness, and thank you for your inputs.
Yeah, thanks much.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for your time, guys.
Yeah, thank you all.